Hi, Tara. Welcome to the High Vibration Living Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. Appreciate it.
Well, I love that I'm having someone on who's really passionate about fitness and weightlifting and movement because it goes hand in hand with diet and lifestyle and food. Everything needs to be in balance. You can't have changes in your life by just editing kind of one area of your life. So I'm excited to learn a little bit from you today about fitness and movement.
Yeah, of course, I could talk about movement all day. So you got the right person on the podcast.
So, tell me a little bit more about your background and how you work as a trainer, your app, how you connect with your community.
I grew up in sports. I ran track in high school and college. And shortly after, I had this big loss of identity because I didn't know who I was outside of being an athlete. I don't know if you were an athlete as well, but
Yes.
student athlete for me was actually athlete and then student. So athlete was like really my identity. And so when I left college, I didn't really know what to do with movement anymore. And so I started running long distances. But when I was in school, I ran track, so I was a sprinter. So very different. Sprinter to long distance is very different. I tried it for a couple of years, didn't love it, and I had a friend of mine ask me to go to this boot camp at the park. It was like a really friendly, fun boot camp, but I kept saying no because I was like, "That's not for me. Not for me." And then I finally went to the boot camp, and it was so much fun. It brought out the competitiveness in me. It brought out a community. That's really that point got me into my fitness career. I started going to that place, which I actually ended up turning into a gym as I was working full time, and then I ended up teaching my first class there 12 years ago, almost to the day. That I taught a group fitness class. Then, as I was getting into fitness, I just loved it so much. I love coaching people. I just loved the community that I got laid off from my full time job and made fitness my full time career. So it's been about, I guess almost 8 years since I've made fitness full time. I started off very heavy into the group fitness, got into personal training, did a bunch of certifications with yoga and Olympic weightlifting and kettlebells, mobility, all the things. And at this point now, I have my own fitness app called Broads. It's a strength and mobility platform for women to get stronger, take up space, and solely focused on the goal of gaining strength and not losing weight. So much of the world is focused on being smaller, and my app is about taking up that space that you deserve. So that's how I work with clients now. And there's personal training and group programmings to follow as well.
So, how can someone approach weightlifting, especially as a woman? And I think even men get to that point too, where they just don't know what equipment and moves to do for their
Yeah,
body.
I like to say think of five things, like the most basic parts of your body. So if you're like, I want to start strength training and I just literally have no idea how to start, I say these five things. Okay. Number one is find a movement for the front of your legs. Second is movement for back of legs. Third is a push movement. Fourth is a pull movement. And fifth is some sort of core movement, which isn't totally necessary in strength training, but people love to work their abs. So I always add that in there. So, for example, the first one, front of legs. So, could you give me an example of what that could be?
To work the front of legs, the first thing I wanted to say was lunging forward, but now I'm thinking more of the thighs. And so I'm thinking about the old school equipment where you would sit down and put the weight on and move your legs up and down.
Okay, you're talking about a leg extension, which is
Yes.
absolutely correct. So is a lunge. So is a squat. Like any sort of basically almost a lot of knee dominant movements are your front of legs, which are your quadriceps. Those are those
Got
big
it.
muscles in the front of the legs. So that's a great example. Let's just call it a squat. That's our first movement. The second movement is the back of legs. Now that is everything from your calves, your hamstrings, all the way up to your glutes. So could you give me an example of that one?
Yeah, so I can picture it in my head. So that would, I'm trying to figure out the proper word to describe it, but that would be if I'm in like cat and dog position, stretching out on my yoga mat and then choosing to lift one leg straight up over and over and over again.
Cool. Okay, so you're in a tabletop position,
Yes.
like for cat cow. Cool, and then
Yes.
you're lifting your back leg.
Yes.
Awesome. That's a great example. Another one from there could be even be a glute bridge. It could be any sort of hinging movement. So the first one was that knee dominant, which is our squats, our lunges. And the next one is our hip dominant. Hip dominant. So like if I were to cut my body in half, it would be the bottom half and the top half. And I'm trying to hinge. That's what we call that back of legs is a hinge. So a lot of times I would throw in a deadlift of some variation, a Romanian deadlift. You can use dumbbells, bands, your body weight. You can put your hands behind your head, hinging from your hips. A really
Got
great
it.
example to try this yourself is to stand. I really like to kind of visualize this with people. Your car door is open and you're standing in front of your car door, but like facing away. And you need to shut the door, but you have all your groceries in your hands. And so the best way you can do that is with your butt, right? You'd send your
Yes.
butt back and it would close the door. That would be an example of a hinge movement. And that's our second exercise. So again, it could be anything like a deadlift. It could be a glute bridge. It could be like what you're talking about, like the kickback. That is the back of legs. The kickback is like hamstrings and glutes. A deadlift is all those muscles I was talking about. And it's really important, especially when you're really starting out, is to pick these compound lifts meaning you're working multiple muscles, multiple joints at once, so that you don't feel overwhelmed with all of the other stuff. So those are our two. Number three is a push movement. So can you give me an example of a push?
So I'm trying to think when we're speaking, I'm visualizing workouts that I do at Orange Theory and
Yeah.
workouts that I do with my physical trainer, Dr. Alex, who I do physical therapy with. So I'm trying to think what we do when we do push. I'm thinking about all the pulls. I guess push could be a push up or when I'm on a TRX wrap and I'm doing the same kind of push up, but leaning more towards in the air. It could
Yes.
also be throwing a medicine ball down and picking it up.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. And we can also think about these as like active movements we do throughout the day. So say
Yeah.
you have like you've got your groceries, you're putting them up on the counter, but then you have to like push them away from you. That is an example of a push. So how can we replicate that in the gym or into your strength training? And that can be
Got
just
it.
like what you said. You can do a push up. You can do a bench press with dumbbells. You can do an overhead press, anything that you're pressing away from you. So
And
overhead.
when we're pressing, we're thinking about also our back muscles as well, right? Because is the push movement going to be working the back of us and the pull movement going to be working the front of us?
It's actually the opposite. So
Okay.
it's kind of like the front of legs and the back of legs, right? So I like to call it a push and a pull movement, but it's like anterior and posterior. Anterior is the front side, posterior chain is the back side. So your push up is going to be working the chest, it's going to be working the triceps, our push muscles, and our pull is going to be working the back muscles, those big lats that you feel on the side, and also your biceps work the pull. So for example, if I'm pushing the stuff on the counter, I'm working my anterior, so chest and triceps. And then if I'm pulling that stuff off the counter, I am pulling my dog off the couch. That is working my back. Now, in all these movements, it's a great question. You are still working so many other muscle groups at once. I think that's the beauty of these compound lifts that I was talking about,
Yeah.
is that with a push-up, we're not just working our chest, right? Where if you're on your feet, you're also working your core and your quads and your shoulders are working. Like so many things are happening at once. So it's really great to like have these compound lifts in there instead of just doing bicep curls or just doing tricep kickbacks, because as we said, that push up also works the triceps. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So let's just call the third exercise a push up because we all know that. And the fourth one would be our pull movement. So what could that be potentially?
I would think, I mean, I could pull the groceries towards me.
Yeah.
I could pick up the weights on the floor and pull them up towards my chest.
Okay. Pulling up your pants, even. That's like a pull movement, right? So any sort of pull we can replicate with a row. So Whitney was talking about a TRX. So we can row the TRX to our body. You can do this with like a mini band. You can do this with light dumbbells. You can do this like a Superman, and adding a pull down is like a really great opportunity for you to try out a body weight exercise at home. Any sort of like pulling away. And you can practice like how we're saying, and I'm trying to really visually have you guys understand this from a podcast, from an audio point of view. But if you had your water
Yeah.
bottle in front of you and you're trying to pull it back towards you, that is a row movement for you. So that's our fourth exercise. And then the fifth could be core. And really, like, Whitney, what is your favorite core exercise?
I mean, it would be just being on my yoga mat and doing sit-ups. It would be using a ball and sitting on a ball and doing sit-ups there. I like this old school movement that I learned way back in high school, where you hold onto a chair or the side of a door and you lean sideways and you kick your leg in and out. Does that make sense? And you
Okay, I
really
can see
tighten
it.
your abs.
Yeah.
Or you do a pull up and down. I love the ab movements where you're focusing on the ab. That's strengthening, but you're also moving other parts of your body at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I love that. Yeah. So many different ways to work your core. This
Yeah.
could be a really great example to also talk about different ways to move your body. Like we talked about mostly bilateral movements here. Bilateral meaning we're using both sides of our body. So a core move I love to add in here is some sort of unilateral or some sort of twisting motion because we're only really working on one plane with all of those. So that's important to note like later on, but if you're a super beginner, I would just say like pick one core exercise. So whether that's a plank, a side plank, some sort of Russian twist, a sit up, a leg raise, like doesn't really matter what it is, but that is your fifth movement. And there we go. We have our workout that we can do twice a week for 4 weeks just with your own body weight. And then we can start to add more stuff on.
And that's what I wanted to know from you is I wanted to know like the expectations of the schedule that we should be making. What's the basic movement we all should be getting every day? And then what's the additional movement we need to be adding in if we want to see physical changes? And then
Yeah.
how long do we need to be doing that for?
So many questions. So let's go one at a
Yes.
time. I love these. And these are so great and so awesome for people to hear. First of all, I love having some sort of goal in mind, right? If you're someone that wants to get into working out or see some sort of progress, like choose whatever goal that is. Maybe for one person, it's I just want to move my body 3 times a week. Cool. Let's start off with once a week and make your way up. Maybe for someone, it's like I want to see visible physical change in my body. Cool. Let's get in maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And then, our goal is progressive overload, but have some sort of goal in mind. And that can be totally specific to you. As far as the expectations of like, how much should I be working out or what should I be doing? It really just depends on the person, right?
Okay.
Those two people that I just mentioned are doing totally different things. And the second person should be working out more than the first, when the first is really just like about longevity and feeling good, but the second person has more specific aesthetic goals. So those are really two different people. So if we were to choose, like, what would you say your audience is more leaning towards, like a more of a beginner or more of someone kind of in the middle?
I think someone in the middle. Like I would say more of the audience is people that have had a health, wellness, spiritual lifestyle.
Awesome.
And they're maybe bored. Maybe they're looking for a way to edit it in the new year. Maybe they're looking for a way to upgrade it. But I would say a majority of my audience is very similar to me. Like we've always had movement in our life, but sometimes you have movement and you don't have purpose behind the movement. You just know you're
Mm.
supposed to move every day.
I love that. And I love that you also told me that you go to Orange Theory because I was at a group fitness. I taught group fitness for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I love group fitness. I will never talk down to group fitness because they brought me to where I am today. But there comes a point when you go to group fitness that you just don't progress.
Yes.
And that's a multitude of reasons. Number one, you don't know exactly how long you're going for. Like in Orange Theory class, you pick up random weights. You don't have heavy enough weights for you. Number two is you're not doing the same workouts all the time. So you might go 3 times in a week and you're doing full body or you're doing the same muscle group every time. It's just not programmed, geared towards getting progressively stronger. It's programmed for fun, community, which is again, awesome. But there comes a point where you're just like, how can I implement some other things that might get me a little bit further? And for someone like you, Whitney, or anyone that goes to classes, keep going to the classes, but add in 2 times a week of just lifting, and you will see some massive improvements in 8 to 12 weeks. And these 2 other days that I'm talking about here are just those compound lifts, doing 2 days a week for 45 to 60 minutes, making sure that you're progressing week over week. Do that for 4 weeks in a row, and then you can start to shift your programming around. So maybe we add in some single-sided stuff. Maybe we make the variations harder. Maybe we change out the tempo. Maybe the rest changes. So there's definitely different ways to make sure that you're progressing. But I would say, like, leaning into getting these workouts in on your own outside of the classes will really benefit you, and also peeling back on going to some of them. So maybe instead of going 3 or 4 times a week, you go twice. That way you can still go see your friends, do the thing, but you don't want to be too sore for those strength training sessions themselves, because that's where the real work comes in.
And when you say progressing, are you referring to increasing the amount of weight that you're using in each session?
Yes. So progressive overload is a term that basically makes sure that you're getting stronger week over week. And that can be a multitude of things, but the easiest ways to look at it, especially as like a beginner to intermediate, is that you are increasing your weight week over week for those compound lifts. So for example, let's just say you have squats and deadlifts on one of the days. Like, your goal over the course of the 4 weeks is to increase your rate of perceived exertion or the weight on the bar. You can also do that by, let's say you only have access to a certain amount of weight, you can shorten your rest period of time so that you can get a little bit more there, or you can slow things down. Like, a squat can be so hard if you're going 3 seconds down, holding for a second at the bottom and going 3 seconds up. So you can still like make it a little bit harder in that case. But in general, I would say, like, the easiest way to look at it is you're slowly increasing week over week.
Is there terminology within the fitness world that we all should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of terms I'm sure that you hear online, but I would say I've talked about progressive overload. That is definitely one that I think people would benefit a lot from knowing. I think knowing the difference between HIIT style, like what you're talking about with Orange Theory, and strength training would be really
Mhm.
important for people to know. But then you can get into some things like, I don't know, if you want to see some sort of physical change, you're talking about body recomposition, which is really just the act of losing fat and gaining muscle kind of at the same time, simultaneously over a certain period of time. But again, it really just depends on the person. Like, you can get overwhelmed. There's a lot of confusing information out there, but always just go back to, like, what is your purpose? What's your goal? And what are you trying to accomplish? Not everyone else.
So, if the person listening today just wants to refine their body, so if they want to lightly sculpt, just be more physically fit, but also have more endurance and more energy. If they're going to add in weightlifting twice a week, what would be your other suggested movements for the week, whether it's group fitness or on their own?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so like I said, it kind of depends on the person and what they're doing
Yeah,
already.
totally.
Let's just pretend it's someone that goes to group classes. They can keep going to those group classes twice a week. Typically, those classes are more on the cardio or endurance side. So that kind of takes away that piece of it. And then the strength can be heavily focused on, like, full rest period, making sure that you're really putting that time under tension and increasing the weight. I'm a huge fan of walking. A lot of trainers say that walking is an exercise, but it actually absolutely is. Your step
Yeah.
count is really important. And really, there is no magic number. It's just how you can make your step count better. So go into your health app of your phone, see what the average is for the last month,
Ooh, yeah.
and then try to increase it by 10% over the next month. That can be your goal. There's no like 10K or arbitrary number. It's just like what is going to work for you. So water, also really important. Making sure that you're sleeping well. I think that's also very overlooked. And then stress levels is huge too. So if you're getting in the movement
Yeah.
itself, then all these other little things will feel so much better, and they'll feel more manageable. But a lot of times when people are trying to gain strength or gain muscle, the sleep and the water and some of the steps are a little bit overlooked, but they
Mhm.
actually play a huge role into changing your body and how
Yeah,
you
that's
feel.
one thing I find happens is if I really try to focus on my movement and the workouts and the exercise, sometimes I sacrifice sleep in order to get that in, and then it backfires on me.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that before. And is that usually when, is it like you're trying to get your workout in the early morning or something before work or at night?
Exactly, when you try to get it done early in the morning and you just don't listen to your body when it needs the extra sleep, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's exactly just what you need.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. And that's something where it's like you kind of just have to be aware of what you need and shift your schedule based on that. But honestly,
Yeah.
a lot of times when you do skip over the sleep and go get your workout in, it actually does you more harm than good, which is unfortunate to hear because I used to be the same person. I'm like, well, if I don't get my workout in, it didn't count. But really, that's just your body telling you that it needed that rest and recovery so that the next time you get in there, you'll feel even stronger and better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have a podcast, you have an app, you've been a trainer for a long time, like you're really deep in the fitness world. I'd love to know what are some of your pet peeves?
Yeah, I have a lot, but I will say, because I've been in the industry for a really long time, I have also seen it change a lot. And I've also seen social media play a huge role in the fact that it can be really confusing. So, a lot of the pet peeves I may have or may have had kind of stem from all the information that's out there. And I really truly feel for the people that are trying to get into fitness and don't really know what to do because someone says, don't do this or do that, or this is better for you and this is not. When it's like, I promise it's in there. It's just about trying to weed through everything else. So I will say my biggest pet peeve really is when people tell you do this and do that or do that. Don't do this, do that. Like you're wrong because you're not doing this. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen this on the nutrition and food side of things, but that's super frustrating because there's so much more to the puzzle, right? So
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest things is that I live in the gray as a trainer. I am not this way and I'm not that way. There's balance and there's gray in between everything. You can do cardio and strength training. You can do Pilates and bar. You can be a muscle mommy and go to yoga. Like you can do so many things, but like there has to be that balance in between. And I think so much of what we see online is like you suck if you don't do this or
Yes.
if you don't have a morning routine that's 20 things long. And I'm just like, this is not what life's about, you know?
I completely agree, and I'm the same way with food. I very much try to approach it and share with people like an 80-20 rule,
Yeah.
and that there is no diet, there is no strict rule. So if someone chooses to eat dairy, like, let them eat dairy. My goal always is that they eat the best version of that, not just for the health benefits and for the physical benefits, I mean, but for the flavor. Like, it's to be
Yeah.
enjoyed, right? It's supposed to be a
Yeah.
pleasure, and I think about that a lot right now with my workouts is, am I doing this because I feel like I have to or because I actually enjoy this movement even when I'm done? And so that's the place I'm in right now is I'm reevaluating all my workouts, the
Yeah.
environment where I'm working out, the people that are around me while I'm working out, and if I want to continue to the course in that place. And what I'm finding is I want to find more play. So I want to
Mm.
find more exercises that also allow me to play. So I'm totally down for doing weights twice a week, but the additional ways I move my body, there has to be some playfulness or beauty in it. So I need to be doing it in an environment that I like. When you've hit points in your fitness where you've thought, I can't keep going back to the same place or I need a new routine, what are some of the exercises you've turned to mix things up?
Yeah, it's funny when you said play to me because I've been in this for a while and I know how valuable strength training is for me and my body. Play for me would be like learning how to do a muscle up or doing a pistol squat with weight or holding a handstand for a minute long. Like those are
Yeah.
still ways that I can personally find
Yeah.
play in strength. However, I definitely get to those points where I'm like, oh, I've been on this program for a while. I've been going to this gym for a while. And I just kind of like, I wouldn't say I'm not motivated because I don't really feel a motivation or not whether to work out. I just work out because it makes me feel really good. But there is like a point in time where I want to just switch it up. And that is something where I would go try a new class or I would try a new program. Or I've worked with plenty of coaches in the past where I just want them to write the programming for me. So I'll work with personal trainers to learn from them, but also just to have someone do the work for me, like write it out so I can just go and do it. Also, I think we were talking about this earlier, but having some sort of goal in mind of, getting a muscle up, getting my first pull up, having some sort of race in mind. I had a powerlifting competition that I was like, okay, this is my training block for the next 3 months. So having something to work towards, I think would be really helpful too, if someone gets to that point, or just working with someone that you want to learn from or totally new.
Yeah. What do you how do you advise people in the winter time? When it's getting dark at 5 o'clock, but your window to work out is really 5 o'clock and after. Um, how do you push through not going home? Or if you're home, getting back out and getting to a place so you can move your body? Because we can't necessarily do it. I mean, even in Southern California, it gets cold and dark and it's hard to work out outside. What is the motivation you use or you share with clients to get them to keep going in the winter months?
I was going to ask you where you lived because I'm in Austin and it's 72
Yeah.
today and it's beautiful out. It definitely gets darker earlier, but I'm like, oh, the weather's so nice here. And I lived in
Yeah.
Denver for most of my life and it got dark and it was gloomy and cold. That was for me
Yeah.
like the hardest thing is like when it gets cold, I just like don't want to do anything. I just want to
Yeah.
like be warm inside. So, my suggestion for a lot of my clients, I work at home now and I would say most of my clients still work in office or they like go somewhere else, but having the stuff with you is imperative. Like, do not go home after your work, go straight to the gym. So, have your clothes and everything with you. Also, having a plan that is just, I mean, as with food, it is so valuable, so important to like have something in mind. So, whether that is signing up for a class, which I think would be really valuable for a lot of people, you already paid for it to have a cancellation fee. You're meeting someone there, they're holding you accountable, hiring a coach. So,
Yeah.
you already paid your personal trainer, like you don't want to lose out on that money.
Yeah.
So having some sort of external thing in mind I think would be really helpful, but also just making it as easy as possible. So driving straight to the gym, having your clothes already ready. Maybe at lunch, depending on what you do for work, you already have your workout clothes on so that as soon as you leave, you're like, I'm already ready to go. Can't like not go at this point.
Yeah.
If you work from home, which I'm sure a lot of people do, it does make it a little bit harder because you're already home. However, you have to go back to what your why and what your purpose is. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I can even say it to you, Whitney.
Yeah.
You are trying to figure out what you want to do and where you want to go next, but there is a why behind it. So
There
much
is.
of what we do as humans is like we do it because we should, but really there is a reason why we do it. We do it because we want to age well. We want to stay healthy. We want to be with our kids when they get older. We want to be able to put our suitcase in the bin by ourselves without having to ask someone to help, like we want. And so sometimes it takes that like stepping back to look at the big picture to be like, it doesn't matter if it's 5 p.m. and pitch blackout. This is what I told myself I was going to do,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. If people are looking for new ways to work out, how can they explore that? What are some places that they can look to get ideas of, oh, that's a class that I can take. Oh, that's a hobby that I can start doing. Oh, that's a simple thing that I can do just stepping outside my front door.
Yes. So I don't know if this is still around, but it was a while. ClassPass is the first thing I always think of because they have so many different classes on there. I think it's like you can get the first week or two for free, and there's so many classes to try different things. Also, I don't know about you, but I use Chat GPT for so much. So I will literally, I asked Chat GPT the other day where I should live, and I told them all of the reasons, I was like, this is exactly what I want. And it gave me a list of 5 places where I should live. So if you're someone that really wants to try out something new, you can give ChatGPT like, here's what I like to do. Here's what's outside of my comfort zone. Here's what I'm trying to do with it. And they can give you some examples of classes. And then it's just on you to find it on ClassPass or like just Google search gymnastics Austin and, you know, the world is your oyster.
Yeah. Have you prompted Chat GPT to describe your perfect day?
I haven't yet. No. Is that nice?
It's nice. It'll bring you to tears.
Oh gosh.
It nails it so well.
Yeah.
It's a really great prompt, and then
Okay.
you can then continue to ask it questions. So you can have it break down your day further, and then you can have it break down the steps that you need to take in your life in order to bring that day to fruition.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, it's so fun. I've also heard, I mean, I've heard so many great things about different things you can ask, but people are like, yeah, I use ChatGPT as my therapist and I'll just ask them what I should do. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well,
I
whatever.
haven't gone there, but good for them, way to use technology because it does get to know you.
It does. Yeah.
It gets to know you really well. So that's really interesting. I will try ChatGPT for some new exercise routines, hobbies. I'm actually going to try it for where it thinks I should live within the town I live in. So I'm going to see if it can suggest
Okay.
neighborhoods within the town that I live in.
See? Yeah. I mean, it's like, because I was like, where should I live? And then it gave me like 20 questions and I answered every question and then it spit out different places. So that's
Yeah, because
cool.
I'm a walker and I love to walk after a meal. And I
Yeah.
love, since I work from home sometimes, I love to be able to walk outside in between podcast episodes and just go for a lap around the block. But I don't live in a
Yeah.
place where I can really do a beautiful walk around the
Okay.
block.
Yeah.
So I need to identify exactly where that is. The walkability is important to me.
Right.
So we're going to use Chat GPT to
I
guide us
love
in the
it.
right direction.
Yeah. There you go.
I would love to know, when you're working with people, when you're interviewing podcast guests, talking to them about fitness, how much does nutrition play a role in helping your clients get the goals that they want?
So I always am going to just preface this with saying it depends on the goals they want.
Okay.
I come from an intuitive and mindful eating kind of world. Obviously, protein and fiber is a really important piece if you are trying to gain muscle and body recomp at all, like change your body in any point of view. Nutrition does play a really big role. However, I will say that it doesn't have to be as strict as what you think it needs to be.
Mm.
Same thing with movement, really. Like, I don't have to move every day. I don't have to do 10,000 steps a day to get the goals that I want. So in that same realm, you don't have to count calories. You don't have to hit all your macros every single day for you to hit the goals that you want to hit. Again, it totally depends on the goals. Like, if someone is like, I want to lose X amount of weight, does counting calories help? Absolutely. Does looking at what you're eating help? Absolutely. But if someone really wants to find that sculpting of the body, find that maybe slight shift of the way you look, or just have a better relationship with fitness and food in general, I lean a lot more into the mindful and intuitive eating realm.
Perfect. Super helpful. I mean, people need to they need to listen to their body and get in tuned at some point. And you have to do that also for movement. You have to know what your body's craving. And I think when you work out every day and then you don't for a few days, you feel your body craving the movement.
Yeah. And as you get into your fitness journey, you kind of realized what more your body does need. So maybe you do track a little while to see how much you are actually eating. Maybe you're underfueling yourself. Maybe you're not giving yourself enough protein to actually see the results you want. But again, I live in the gray of being able to do both.
Are there are there breakfasts that you have found fuel you the best?
I have been eating the same breakfast for about 7 years, and it is overnight oats.
Yeah.
It's just oatmeal, yogurt, protein powder, and milk. And
Okay.
then I just put some berries or something on top or water instead of milk sometimes. Yeah, I've been eating it for so long that it's just like so normal to me. But that yogurt, maybe some sort of egg, something, but I typically work out after breakfast. So that just fuels me and it fuels me for my workout and makes me feel fuller longer.
And then are there different lunches that you lean towards in different seasons?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like usually in the winter, it's a little bit more like bowl or soup or something heavy, but most of the time it's either a salad or sandwich or something like that. I'm pretty basic when it comes to food, Whitney. And yeah, you'd probably be like, really again? And I'm like, yeah, it's still a burrito bowl again.
But at least you know what you like.
Yeah. And that's really the thing with food too, is just figuring out what you like and if it actually suits your goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that you have to meal prep, or do you prefer just to make your meals as you need them?
I personally work from home. My husband does as well. So we don't have to anymore. I do help my clients kind of realize that maybe some of them do just because they do have a busy schedule or they're gone throughout the day or something. The only ones we actually do meal prep is our overnight oats because that's just something you have to put in the fridge overnight. But otherwise,
Is there
not
s
really.
yeah, is there are there supplements that you have found have been super supportive to you and that you also suggest to your clients?
Protein and creatine is
Okay.
just the ones that I've taken every day and the one I give to my clients all the time. Protein is just really to hit my protein goals. And again, depends on the client and what their goal is. And creatine is one of the most research supplement in the world. And there's been shown to see so much improvement in your strength increasing, muscle soreness, cognitive, and it's been heavily researched on women, especially going through peri and pre-menopause.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot more talk about women taking creatine. If they want to explore taking it, what brands do you suggest that they purchase from?
Yeah, I personally use Legion. I've been working with them for a couple years, but I would say like any creatine that is just a basic monohydrate that you can just search like on Amazon or Google or something, monohydrate, you can take between 3 and 5 grams, but you do have to take it every day to be consistent and to see the results you want to see, even on your rest days. So I would just say like be really consistent with it. I know it can take a little bit of time to like actually get used to it, but after that like 2, 3, 4 week time, you'll see a huge noticeable change in a lot of the lifts you have.
Okay, so what is the change that people should be looking for?
Yeah, number one for me was I do not get sore at all anymore. Like I can sometimes have my heaviest lifts and I'm never sore. And this is coming from someone that used to chase the soreness. So
Yeah,
I was like, why am I not sore anymore? What's not working? But it's actually doesn't, you don't have to be sore for it to be a good workout and for you to see change
yeah.
in your body. But yeah, you're not sore anymore. You recover faster. My sleep, I feel like got better and I feel like I'm more aware of things. Like I'm a little bit more productive because there is studies to show that it helps with cognitive stuff too.
That's amazing. You know what it reminds me a little bit of? Have you ever taken MSM powder? MSM sulfur powder?
No.
So I've been taking that supplement for the past 3 months, and
Okay.
it's a part supports with all those things too. So it's a
Nice.
compound that is in soil, so you're getting just more concentrated form of it because most people don't get enough of it from their produce these days. And it supports joint pain, it supports sleep, it supports cognition, it supports nails and hair. So it's really interesting how when we find certain supplements to kind of fill in the holes, the the physical things that were bothering us slowly just dissipate.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything that's in a morning or evening routine right now that is in the health, wellness, spiritual space that has been really supportive for you?
Mm. I This is not a sponsored ad by any means, but I will stand by the Hatch alarm clock until I die. I love it so much. Have you heard of it? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. I always thought I was a good sleeper, but it took me forever to actually fall asleep.
Mm.
And I swear this Hatch alarm, which is just light and sound, makes me sleep like a baby every single night. So if there's one thing you're going to purchase on Black Friday or for Christmas, because my husband bought it for us like a couple years ago and I'm like, how did we live without this for so long? So that's something that I enjoy. I'm not a huge, like I don't need like this whole huge morning or evening routine.
Yeah,
But that is the one thing that's majorly helped our sleep. We also don't have any phones or screens or anything in the bedroom
yeah,
at all, which is super helpful for us too for the sleep side.
yeah. I don't have any televisions or screens in my bedroom, and I don't even bring my cell phone in there ever. It's just
Yeah,
like it's my sleep space.
right.
Um, and I keep a yoga mat on the floor too, because sometimes I just like to
Nice.
like stretch right before bed or right when I get up.
Yeah, that's super smart actually. I like that.
I would love to know, are there any kind of health wellness books or podcasts that you're really into right now?
Yeah, my own. It's called the Terra Talk. No, just kidding. um, Health and wellness podcasts. I'm going to tell you that I actually haven't been listening to that many podcasts recently. One of my favorite podcasts of all time, and it's probably still on the top, is Mel Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
She's awesome. Love it so much. I've also been listening to Mind Pump forever, and that's a fitness podcast. Three Bros fitness podcast. But if you want to hear some other women talk about fitness, I have a podcast called the Terra Talk. And yeah, those are like the podcasts I listen to. As far as books go, you can see the books behind me, but I don't even know. I honestly don't have any to give you right now.
No problem. I always like to learn where people keep learning and growing within their sector that they're into, or just how else they keep exploring and growing within themselves. And everyone has a different, a different podcast that they turn to. I go through phases too. This year, I haven't been listening to too many podcasts. I've kind of lightened up. Whereas other years, it's like I'm devouring information.
Same. Yeah. Yeah. I think I had a big business shift this year, and that was like taking so much of my time that I was like, well, I don't want to learn any more things. I'm already learning so much about this at this time.
Yeah.
And I love to read, but so much of what I read is just fiction. Or it's thrillers, it's romance novels, novellas, like that kind of stuff. So I like to like really just take my mind off of the learning. But I will start getting back into that in January, of course.
Well, where can people learn from you, connect with you, work out with you? Share the places where people can find you and listen and tune in.
Yeah, I'm Tara LaFerrara on every social platform. I'm mostly on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube. I also have a brand new fitness app called Broads. You can find us in the Google Play and Apple Store. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok there. And then I have my podcast called the Tara Talk, live every Tuesday, and have guests come on. I have different solo episodes all about health and wellness, and I really try to take a mindful, intuitive, balanced approach to health and wellness.
And can you leave our listeners with one last health, wellness, fitness tip that they can consider adding into their life?
When you get to a point in your strength training where you're just going through the movements, try harder. Pick up the heavier weights. Make sure those last couple reps are challenging, and I promise you will see those results, but make it hard.
That's a really great reminder, because sometimes you do just go through the movement because you just think you're supposed to be moving. So you really have to be mindful with each pull, with each press, with each push,
Yeah,
as you've
every
shared with
rep
us
you do.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for chatting, and thank you for these
of course.
insights so we can all get a little bit more mindful with how we approach our fitness.
Yeah, thanks for having me.